Great. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Town of Dewey Beach monthly town meeting, as well as a workshop afterwards to talk about the charter and the code. It's being held at the Dewey Beach Life Saving Station, as well via Zoom. It's Friday, June 21st of 2024, and it's 3 o'clock. With that, I'd like to convene the Town Commissioner meeting and start with the opening ceremonies with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. The next is roll call. Commissioner Bauer.
Present.
Commissioner Gibbings.
Here.
Commissioner Jasinski.
Here.
Commissioner Persinger.
Here.
And Mayor William Stevens is here. We also have our town manager, Bill Zolper.
Here.
Chief of Police, Con Speak, and Counsel, Fred Townsend. With that, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Committee reports. Commissioner Bauer.
Nothing to report. Marketing is meeting next
How
month.
can you start with nothing to report and keep going?
There's nothing to say.
Okay. Okay, good. All right, Commissioner Gibbings.
Investment Committee has not met since our last meeting.
Commissioner Jasinski.
Just an update, I guess, Reed Avenue, and I'm sure the town manager will be talking about it. The new flaps aren't working like everyone hoped. As everyone knows, we've tried a lot of different approaches. There's going to be a meeting this coming month with the engineering firm to talk about it. And I guess people should also keep in mind that we have a large grant that's kind of pending that potentially might be another way to mitigate the situation with a little bit more firepower in terms of dollars. So that's what's going on with infrastructure.
Commissioner Persinger.
Yeah, the Climate Change Committee is scheduled to meet on July 13th. I don't think Charter and Code has a meeting scheduled at this point, but the chair is sitting here and he can correct me if I'm wrong. So, all right, so that's all I have.
Great. With that, can I get a motion to approve the May 17th, 2024 meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item, town manager update.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the 3-year police contract has been signed. The FOP signed off on it. I signed it. Fred had reviewed it, and it is done. And we are good for the next 3 years on the police contract. This lifeguard station we're currently sitting in is a lease from the Delaware Economic Authority. Given some of the situation that's happened recently in Rehoboth with Deauville Beach, I've been working with the state through Pete Schwarzkopf's office and through Secretary Bullock to try to get the town to obtain the property instead of us leasing it from the state. There will be some stipulations if this goes through. We won't be able to ever tear the building down. We will be able to make some moderate changes on the inside. For example, if we wanted to have the locker rooms for the lifeguards, more showers for the lifeguards, things like that. We could modify it somewhat, but it's not completed yet. Their attorney's has just contacted Fred Townsend to discuss it further, but I think this would be a huge win for the town if we're able to take it over. And the other thing we'd like to look at is eventually making this site a historical site, because this is where the original lifeguard station sat. And I think that would be something good for the town also. So it's in the works, and I just wanted to let the commissioners know about that. The RFP for trash. Okay, so we've been with the same trash company now going on 5 years. I extended it 1 year, but it's going to go back out for bid again. There was a committee back in 2016 that spent a lot of time looking at trash. We had 4 or 5 different trash companies back then going up and down the streets on different days, sometimes 3 trash companies on one street during a day, and it caused a lot of problems. So that committee that met in 2016 decided it was better that we have one trash company that does the whole town. So we're going to be sending out an RFP in the next 6 months on that. We'll see what the bids are that come in, but I would ask the community if you have any ideas what you'd like to see different in the RFP for trash, that you email me, email anybody, the commissioners, and let us know what you'd like to see different with the trash company and the way they are working right now, okay? Because we're going to put this out and we're going to see what we get back on the RFP. Reed Street, as Commissioner talked about, I'm not satisfied with the flaps that were installed, and I have not made payment on the work that's been done. We have a meeting with RV, who was the engineering firm that contracted SPS to do the work. Been working with the infrastructure committee. We're gonna have a meeting set up in the next 30 days to talk about how they can mitigate what they've done down there with the flaps. And we are pending $1 million grant that I wrote through Senator Coon's office that is sitting with the Army Corps of Engineers that we'll be able to use also sometime in the future at the end of the street. Letters went out to all the business owners that own restaurants in town, reminding them what their conditional uses are for their outside decks. Example, decks must be cleared or start to be cleared by 11 o'clock. There is to be no smoking out there. Noise, no amplified music out on the deck. There's a number of different things in their conditional use. I sent a letter out to them last year reminding them. I'm sending the letter out again to remind them. So just to let you know, we're trying to be as proactive as possible to get remind the restaurants what their conditional uses are. Fire department. So last year we did a really nice job where we matched donations to the fire department. This year we're going to match up to $5,000. So in our July newsletter, it's going to give the instructions that if you want to make a donation to the fire department, the town will match it. So that'll be coming out in our July newsletter. Town hall, the update, things that have been approved. It's all DelDOT approved. It's DENREC approved for water. Sussex County Engineering's approved it. Fire marshal on the exterior of the building has approved it. State's approved it for ADA compliance because we got a grant for $3 million to Pete Schwarzkopf's office. The only thing that's pending right now is the interior for the fire marshal, the reviewing the plans, and we hope to have that done in the next 15 days. Once we get it back, we'll take it over to the county. It'll come back, it'll go to Dawn Hinks, our building official, and then we're gonna put it out for bid. Kate, can you put the photos up? So we've been working with the state on a cigarette container program. We've already had like 6 put up. We put a couple up around the town, and I've ordered 4 more of those. There's just a lot of cigarette butts around town, and we're trying to get people, we're finding where these people are using them, and we're putting the containers up to try to get that mitigated as much as possible. QR codes. So Commissioner Jasinski came up and said, hey, why don't we put QR codes underneath our parking? So you go up that, you click on it, and it takes you right to our website with frequently asked questions about parking. It also has pictures of like driveway markings, so people know that, hey, in the north end especially, these little L's mean that's a driveway. So we've got those as an example. So those are up all around town. Movie night was a success. I'm sure Carol will talk about that. Danger sign down at the north end. So I got permission from DENREC to put this sign up temporarily. It'll be there from May 1st until the end of September. And it marks a stormwater pipe that comes out of Silver Lake and goes out into the ocean. And during high tides, it's completely covered. Captain Fritchman says we've had 3 people hurt on that, so we've got that sign up. I'd like to thank the town of Rehoboth. We had them make that sign for us about 6 months ago, and then we got it installed. Any questions about that, please let me know. Lifeguards are doing a great job. Dog ambassadors are doing a great job. Our police department did a really nice job with the June bugs. And here you see the lifeguards doing their EMR training. We're the only lifeguard group in Delaware where all our lifeguards are emergency medical response trained. All the rest of them just do the lieutenants, but we do everybody. It costs the town about $10,000 to bring the fire marshal folks in here to train our folks, but it's worth it. So each one of our folks are trained in that. Comp plan, Jim Dedes.
Yes, we did a comp plan update as we do every year. And what it is, it's a land use annual report. It was submitted June 13th to the Office of State Planning. And what it does, it looks at the original comp plan and the goals and objectives that we set forth. And we've gone through and checked them off. And we've updated it. We've added some additional goals and additional updates. The update is actually on the web, and the partnership, we asked all the department heads to contribute to it. And I'd like to thank Commissioner Gary. You just have done a great job helping us out on that, and I really appreciate that. And I'd like to say Dave Lyons from the Charter and Code Committee and on the Planning Commission for helping us get it together. So it's there, it's on the web. If you want to take a look at it, please do. And every year we do an update report, and it was submitted and signed by the mayor on June 13th of this year.
Thank you, Jim. The last thing is I'd like to, the Bloom thing around town has been a huge success. I'd just like to thank everybody for supporting and still keeping up with the flowers and keeping them watered. Pending any questions, Mayor, that's all I have.
The only question I have is, I know that we have budgeted 5,000, but wasn't the increase, didn't we donate more than that to the fire department last year?
We did. Last year, it was 10,000. We matched up to 10 in this year's budget. We didn't set that much aside for it. We weren't sure how, with the police contract coming through, how much other funds we'd have available. We can always go back later in the year and make a budget amendment.
Correct.
If we see
Okay.
some revenues coming in higher, maybe from parking or transfer tax.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good.
Yeah.
With that, do you want to invite Ms. Everhart up to
Sure.
give her
And then
update?
after that, the chief.
Then the chief, yes. As long as she says the chamber's name correctly.
Let's see. Dewey Rehoboth Chamber of Commerce. Okay. Well, I'm glad I got here tonight. Usually I can't get here because Rehoboth, every Friday, same Friday, hour apart, and I serve as the spokesperson for the chamber in Rehoboth also. So they've decided that they're not going to have the organizations have an in-person report anymore, so you're going to be seeing more of me. That could be a good or a bad thing, okay?
Or when they're lost.
You're always
Thank you.
welcome here.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, first thing is short-term rental. I just want you to know that that is still they're still working it. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I do believe that there's going to be some kind of an increase, so if you have a short-term rental that you're leasing out, they want to collect a tax. Chamber's stance on this for decades has been, we'll equalize it. The hope was that it would be the same as if you checked into a hotel. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be some tax on short-term rentals. Just so you know, there's only 2 states that don't collect this, Alaska and Delaware. That's it. And 1 county in California. So I think it's going to go through. I don't know if it's going to be 2%, 8%. I don't know what's going to happen. So I'll let
First
you
time I
know.
ever wanted to finish last.
Yeah, there you go. The dining guides have been completed. They're out being distributed. I brought some and left them in the back for you. The theft prevention seminar was very successful. We had about 20 business people there. I heard stories I had not heard, and I was surprised to hear those stories. The restaurant week was held June 2nd through the 7th. 22 restaurants participated, and the funds from that, this is how it works. Because we receive a part of the tourism collection of the tax, we can't give that money away. It must be spent on marketing, okay? And believe me, they check on me. But when the business pays to be a part of that, I can give that money away. So the chamber will be donating again to the Rehoboth Beach Police Department, the Dewey Beach Police Department, Tunnels to Towers, and Home of the Brave this year. And I would suspect it's going to be before the middle of July, okay? So we'll let you know how that comes out. Chamber interns, they began on June 3rd. They assist with the movies and bonfires. And the first movie and bonfire was very successful. First movie, we had 220, and the bonfire, we had 305. And to my knowledge, there wasn't any issues at all, okay? WETA TV out of Virginia came and filmed the week of June 3rd through 6th. And they will be running a special on the area. As soon as I know what the link is to that and when it's going to air, I'll make sure I get that to the town. And the last thing is this EARNS information. This is important for businesses. There will be a requirement to provide some type of insurance. I'm actually unclear on the number of employees. I believe it's if you're under 10, you don't have to do it, but I've heard 2 stories. So we are going to present a EARNS seminar so that the businesses or towns can come and find out what's expected of the business. This has to do with retirement. Okay, they call it EARNS, E-A-R-N-S. As far as accommodations and occupancy goes, year to date, we're pretty close. Last year, entire zip code, so 19971, that whole zip code. Last year on a Wednesday, January to June 9th, was 37,000 some. This year it was 33,000 some. Well, I think that was April weather. I think that was that weather we had in April, I'm guessing. On the weekend, last year 51,000, this year 47,000. So again, that's that whole big zip code. Dewey, however, looks better. On a Saturday night, week one, in May, last year 29%, this is just hotels, 29% full, this year 51. Last year 56, this year 59. Last year 72, this year 60, that was weather, I checked. Week four, 80 and 80, so we're the same. And the first couple weeks of June, again, you're looking good. Week one, 53% on Saturday, this year, 71%. And you went from 80 last year to 81%. So overall, Dewey is doing much better with visitation than the overall area at this point. Any questions?
No, thank you.
You're welcome, you're welcome. And you're
Thanks,
gonna see
Carol.
more of them. We're gonna see our road again.
All right,
We'll see you next month.
Chief.
So we're up to 12 officers now. The 3 that were new to the agency or came out of the academy or have completed their training, so they're out on the road in solo status. You've probably noticed a lot more traffic enforcement than a year ago. We have more officers on the street. We're doing a lot of speed enforcement. We're doing crosswalk enforcement, and we're out there a lot more. And my new way I've been doing it is as soon as I get a complaint about speeding, it gets to me, I immediately put officers out there so that we can enforce on different streets. And then what I'm trying is to put out speed enforcement guidelines they'll be out there for a week straight. And I'm tracking it to see how many tickets we're actually having, what's the highest speed, low speed. So we can really figure out if we're really having a speed problem or if it's a perception problem. And what you'll notice is the thing that a lot of people don't understand, it is 25 miles per hour on Coastal Highway as well as the side streets. It is not 15 as some of the streets. There have been some signs that said 15 and that's not the case. It's 25 per state law. And if you're walking or anything, a car going 25 miles per hour seems like it's going a lot faster than that. So that's what we're doing to try to resolve these issues. We're getting out there right away. We're putting the officers out there. They're visible. And then we're trying to figure out what the problems are and then make adjustments. And then a lot of people are going through the town manager to see if, we need to put a speed bump in or other things like that to resolve these issues. If you've also noticed, we have a new speed trailer that was deployed at the other end of the town, so that people coming from Bethany this way have the same thing. The lights flash after 25, so we kind of have that to slow people down before they come into town. And I know it's difficult. The thing about this town is people are coming at higher speeds into our town, and we have those to slow them down. Doesn't always work, but we are trying our best to get people to slow down in town. So we really are trying. The speed enforcement, so my stats are usually a little behind because I have the stats for May, not June. We wrote 158 citations and warnings in the month of May, and we did 208 hours of traffic enforcement. So we were out there for 208 hours enforcing traffic. Whether we got a citation or not, we were out there. Memorial Day weekend, the town, as everybody, if you were in town, it was packed. There were people everywhere. However, it was pretty amazing that we did not have that many arrests that weekend. It was amazing. Everybody was doing well. I mean, we only had a couple arrests for the whole Memorial Day weekend, which was surprising with the thousands of people that were everywhere. So we've had a lot of, when we went through the June Bug weeks, that actually lasted for, it seemed about 3 weeks long. We had a lot of homes that we went to. Just this week, there were 19 citations issued for underage drinking. So basically zero tolerance on that. Where when we get there and we find it, we notify if they're renting, we notify the landlord and let them know what's going on. We've evicted a couple people out of the seniors out of their homes, and we had a lot of citations for that. So next month I'll have better numbers. I'll be able to specifically tell you how many tickets we wrote for actually underage drinking or loitering or anything like that. So we're trying to get it so I can identify our stats a little bit better and let you guys know what's really going on in town. But our seasonals are doing a fantastic job. They're out and about, they're on the bikes, they're on foot, they're in the transport van, they're on the UTV patrolling the beaches and everything. And they're out there and they have been issuing a lot of citations. And most of the citations for urinating, underage consumption of alcohol, possessing alcohol, and a lot of our arrests have been for disorderly conduct, things like that. And we've had some fights. We've had, and since our season started, I think we've had about 2 major assaults, which is pretty good. And on one of them, we were able to arrest both individuals that were involved in that. And the victim is okay. So it's been going very well. We have our last dispatcher was hired, so we're up fully staffed. And what that means to you is we always have a dispatcher in the station, 24 hours a day. You can come to our station now and come to the window and get help. There's always somebody going to be there to offer you help or answer the phone. And we didn't have that in the past. So we've come a long way with that, and we've really professionalized our communication section, which is great. We have one opening for a police officer. We've been advertising, trying to get somebody interested. I'm hoping to get possibly a seasonal interested and go to the October Academy, or maybe if we're lucky, we'll get another a veteran officer that will want to come over and transfer to our agency. The last thing of note is our canine Jasper, which a lot of you people probably saw him on Facebook or he was in the newspaper, that he was donated to us by Highland Canine. So he was free, he was donated, he was trained, he was a rescue dog that was trained for tracking or trailing and narcotics. Well, Jasper ended up having a lot of medical issues. And we sent him back for retraining, and we worked with him. We worked with several trainers and some vets and stuff with him. But unfortunately, he just was not able to be a patrol dog for us. The good part about it is that Highland Canine is allowing us to keep him, and Corporal Epke, who was his handler, is keeping him at home with
Hi,
his.
Del, it's Jim. How are you? I am good.
So the dog,
can I do?
the dog is being kept with the environment that he's used to. And he's at home with Corporal Epke, and he will remain there. And he has his brother Benson, which is his brother dog, and he's very happy being at home. So in the fall, we will be purchasing a new canine, which will also be a tracking / narcotics dog. So we will end up having a second dog, and then I'm hoping we'll have better success with that. But the good success about the story is Jasper ended up with a great home, and he's very happy. So that's the end of my report.
Happy. All right.
Good job, Chief.
All right. Thank you, Chief. So we're going to get into the, just a kind of an overview of today's meeting. We're going to get into public comment, but I just want to kind of set the tone. We're going to start with the monthly town council meeting. So as in regards to things that aren't on the agenda, from that perspective, if you want to come up and have public comment, please do so right now. What we're going to do is, as we get into each line item of the section before we get into the workshop, also ask for a public comment, so it's relevant at that point in time. For any of the elements associated, you can do whatever you want. This is an ask. But if you can wait until we get to the charter and code review for public comment, so that it could be at the right time, that'd be great, and we'd appreciate it. So with that, is there anyone here for public comment?
You go first. We're both virgins here, so we're supporting one another.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners and Chief of Police and everybody else, thank you for your time today. My name is Lily Linton, and I'm a proud resident of Somerset Community on McKinley Avenue. In early May, my neighbor alerted me of a bright light that had been installed by a neighboring business, and it was lighting their home during the evening hours. When I returned, I discovered the same light was pointed directly into both of my bedrooms in my home. For the last 2 months, we've tried numerous attempts to get this resolved. We're working with Bill. We're also working with Paul. My ask is that we have the city of Dewey take a look at the code and enforce it, the code that we have. The second is I'm so sorry, I haven't gotten much sleep because there's so much light in my place. Anyway, the second ask is that we consider not only our residents, but the fact that it's impacting the wildlife in our area. It's such an intense, bright LED light that it's not only coming into the home, but it's impacting our environment. So we haven't updated the code in about 30 years. So I'm asking the commissioners, alongside of our other communities in the beaches, which were Bethany Beach and also Lewis, they've all updated their lighting codes. And I'm asking, maybe we could take a look at that and modernize, because there's a lot of lighting differences from 30 years ago to today. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And I'm really interested in how this meeting's run. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn.
Thank you, Lily.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is April Novak from 105 Clayton Street. I call you guys the Dewey Beach team. So hi team, thanks so much for allowing us to come in and chat with you. Chief, I want to say thanks. I know we're slowly but surely getting there, but my biggest concern that I have is pedestrian safety. I live on the Bay Side, so I cross the beach to go to the beach any day that I am here. I have almost been hit by cars several times. My friend was hit by a car on Sunday, and thank you, Commissioner Bauer, for helping us with that. My biggest concern is I know as adults we pay attention and we're looking. My biggest fear is that we're going to have a child fatality and we're going to be that town. Let's get away from being that town. I think TJ saw this vision years ago that we have a little bit of a pedestrian problem. I agree. I think speeding's part of it, but speeding I feel like has gotten a lot better. But what else can we do? Are there seasonals available? I'm available to help brainstorm, look at things, just to put the pedestrian safety a little bit more on the radar, because I just don't want our town to be the town that's on the news because 2 children got hit trying to cross going to the beach with their parents because they're not paying attention. As to no fault of any of us here, but drivers are, I think we all know, so much more in a hurry today. I'm not sure where they're going, but very much in a hurry and are not paying attention. They're not fully engaged with their eyes on the road. That's how last year that car was this close to me. I could see inside and see what she was doing. I saw what she was drinking, her Coke from Burger King. So my ask is that the council think about this, if we can get a little committee together, or Chief, anything I think as residents we can engage on how to make this better. I'm willing to help, and that was just my concern I wanted to bring to the council today.
Thank you.
So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, all. Thanks for having me. My name is Tim Michael. I'm at 9 Bellevue and have been a resident here since 1988. Basically, for the past 36 years in front of our house, we have a parking pad that we put 4 cars in, head in. This year, unfortunately, I know that with the rule that started 2 years ago, we kind of got by that with some help from some members here. But this year, they're definitely targeting our house and you're getting tickets if you pull straight in there. It's really become a hardship, basically, because one of the spots, if another car parks there, we have no access to that parking pad whatsoever now. It also, certainly with the loss of these 3 spaces, we had 4 in front, now we have 1 that covers with the dreaded yellow line. So we're down to 1 spot, and it's really caused a real devaluation of my property when they go to sell it. I figured each parking spot is probably worth $100,000 going to the parking spots down here in Dewey, so wanted and needed. So that's caused a problem. And my real concern is basically now we're putting the parallel parking on the street. We have kids in this neighborhood. Bellevue, as another member here, is a very tight neighborhood. Basically, everyone lives there all summer long. There's minimal people that rent. We all know each other. We all get along fine. Everybody has no problem the way we were parking before. But the safety issue of it right now is a real concern because we're putting parallel parking out into the street And now with, as we talk about the speeding up and down, and you can check out Bellevue anytime, certainly between 5 and 8 or so, when everybody's looking for the restaurants or going for the ice cream, it's a constant up and down turnaround and fast as they can go. There's kids that live there, they come out from behind the car, they're right in the street. If you let us park the way we were before, they're not out in the street. You've got another 5 feet of open street there, as opposed to how narrow that street is. So I'm asking if we get some sort of special exception under your code of 18567A, which has to do with congestion on the streets. And I think you should really look at it as far as the safety issue as well. Again, I know back in 2003, we built an addition to our house. We had to show that we had 6 parking spots to the town. They said, yep, okay, you got them, you can build your addition. Now all of a sudden, we don't have them. I just don't understand what the reasoning is here. And I just need to get some feedback and what we're gonna do to change this, because right now I can't have this continue like this.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Doug Kennedy. I'm at 15 Bellevue. I've been coming to Dewey Beach since 1970, and I'm full-time on Bellevue Street, and live 2 houses down from Tim. And, you know, I definitely feel their pain on what's going on. Our parking on our street has gotten a lot worse. I mean, we understood that with the starboard claw coming in and things like that. And that was cleaned up front. I'm really happy about the turn onto the corner. But from my standpoint, the real big issue is consistency too. I mean, there's just, it seems like it's an ever-moving ball in terms of you're allowed to park in, you're not. And I've had conversations with the police, I've had conversations with the parking attendants, and every time I ask about parking in certain areas, I get a different answer. And so there's no consistency on that front. I've gotten to the point now where I have a space in front of my house, which Bill knows about, which is so small, but it is a parking space. I've accepted the fact that if I'm not going out, I'm just blocked in. I'm just blocked in that night. Car will park there, I can't get out of either one of my spaces or my middle space. And I'm okay with it. If I'm not going anywhere, I'm fine. If I see the person parking there, I'll have them block one of my parking spaces so I can get out of the other parking space and I'll move my car. I've even opened it up where I'm like letting random people park randomly in my parking, because there's just no place to park on our street. So that's really the big issue. I do want to make one comment about the safety on the sidewalks. I'm the father of 3 kids, a 12-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old. And I talked to him about 2 things, drugs and fentanyl and crossing Route 1 on Dewey Beach, okay?
Amen.
It's that bad. And I've turned into cars that are gonna drive through a stop walk where the lights are going and they're playing with their phone or looking in a different direction. No blame to you guys. It's just the situation and where we're at with this town. It's great that we have so many people coming through, but there's so much to look at when you're driving through town. People are on their phone, they're looking at how busy Raw is or how busy Starboard is. And it's not if it happens, it's going to happen unless we come up with a plan that's going to help protect these kids. I literally did not buy on the Bayside because I didn't want my kids crossing Route 1. So I applaud you guys for what you're doing. I hope you find a better solution, but it's going to happen and it's going to be devastating when it does. So thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mike.
Anyone else here for public comment?
I'll take it.
Name, rank, address.
105C Bellevue Street. I'm a year-round resident. I've only been a year-round resident for 8 months, but I've been coming here since 1997, and I've never seen this road like this. I literally watched someone get hit by a car and be lying in the middle of Route 1 last spring, before the season even started. And I watched cars flying by in the southbound lane at 60 miles an hour with no regard for the human being laying on the ground with what could have been a life-threatening injury. No one's life and no one's calendar or schedule or getting somewhere 5 minutes faster to cross through the 6 blocks of Dewey Beach is more important than someone getting across the street alive, period. And that needs to be, we need to hold people accountable for that, because they just don't think they are. You can see it when they drive through. You can see that they think that I watched a kid almost get hit by a minivan on his bike today, 1:02 in the afternoon at Clayton. I was on my way to April's. You can pull the tape, I'm sure it's there. Minivan driver, and I've done it. because everyone else is going 30, 40 miles an hour and you gotta keep pace with the traffic. I don't care if you put a gate at the middle or at the beginning of each side of town and you make everybody stop before they come in. You make it a toll road and you gotta pay $20 to get through, so it's just as expensive to go around as it is to go through. But something has to happen because people don't want to take 24. They don't want to take, whatever, Central Avenue through Dagsboro, and they think this is a thoroughfare, and it's not. It's a national park. It's a national historic highway. It's this way from Key West to Maine. It's A1A. It's not Route 1. It's a different beast, and it needs to be treated that way. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I say something too? Sorry, I'm not prepared, so I'm gonna.
But you're gonna have to stand up.
Okay, so I live on Salisbury, and I was not prepared for this. Obviously, I was at the beach with my kids, and I'm very shy, so I feel, but I hear all the. I'm Maria Myers. I live on Salisbury, not prepared, but I do feel like living here, Route 1, I love the blinking lights. I feel like that's helped us cross Route 1 when we're walking. So I do want to stand up and say that that actually was a huge thing. I see people giving the finger when you're not doing 25 and swinging around you, but I don't know what you're going to do to control that. My concern is the Ocean Block and it being residential parking only, because I counted 204 cars going up and down our street to turn around yesterday for dinner. And my daughter, unfortunately, my athlete daughter, did get hit by a car on her bike in a bike lane. Now, I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago, and sustained bad injuries. So I do want Route 1 fixed, but we can't, like we make this saying, you can't fix stupid. Like you're not going to fix somebody looking for their wife at dinner to pick them up and park. But making a business parking area and resident parking area might help all the turnarounds, the shooting down the street. 204 cars shouldn't be driving up and down route like Salisbury Street looking for a dinner spot. Where are you going? Our joke was Memorial Weekend, where are you going? Like you thought you're going to find a spot on the Ocean Block in the middle of town on Memorial Day weekend, but that's what they think. So I think if we could think about the option of maybe making resident only, like Rehoboth might do. So there's areas where you can't park no matter what, and then there's areas where you have to park. Because if you go down where Ivy is, there's so many spots to pull in, but nobody goes that far. So, I mean, that might be something, because I do think crossing Route 1 is easier than it used to be. I used to pull that wagon with my and run across Sweet Street for my life. And now you press it, and most people stop. And if you watch for them to stop, you can get across. But before, it was run. So I do want to thank you for that, because I think that has helped. I mean, some people are unfortunately like my daughter got hit, and he didn't know that there was something called a bike lane. He literally started taking pictures of the dent in his car that he made with my daughter's body and never said sorry. He never was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Nothing, just pictures. Can't fix that. But I would love to see some like revision of resident parking only versus business parking. So you get some of the people not paying attention, they're hungry, they want to eat. Maybe they can park on a certain section of town if that's possible. Anyway, sorry, I'm not dressed appropriately.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else here in the audience? Okay, anybody online?
Yes, Ms. Laverjon is going to let her speak first.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to address our town's commissioners and the community. My name is Olide Laverjon. I have lived in Dewey every summer at McKinley Street in the apartment above Mama Maria restaurant for the past 22 years since I married my husband. I am also a teacher at Rehoboth Elementary. I have taught for over 15 years. We have 3 children, Jessica, Gabby, and Pepe. The reason I'm speaking today is because I have been hearing some complaints about the lighting outside our apartment building. I do not know the details, but I must let everyone know that my main concerns are for my children, for my parents-in-law who are very, they're elderly, and they come and visit us here in the summer all the time. My daughter, Gabby, she has significant sight issues, and my son, Pepe, who is 10 years old, has special needs. He was born with hearing loss and was diagnosed with autism when he was 4. He also has receptive and expressive language delays and he said his first word when he was only 7 years old. His follow-up by many specialists at school and at AI DuPont Hospital. For the past couple of years, my son has been having issues with leaving the apartment at nighttime due to poor lighting behind the building. He will refuse to leave the apartment at nighttime or even walk to the door. I shared my concerns with his therapist. In one of her sessions with my son, she was able to have Pepe express that he was concerned about being too dark at night. I shared these concerns with my husband, and he must have decided to have one of the lights that had been outside the building for the past 30 years. That light has been facing the driveway outside the building. And he must have decided that maybe he brought it to a higher degree that it would light up better, and maybe that would mitigate my son's anxiety and sensory issues when it comes to light. He did not share about this with anyone because the topic of my son's disabilities is a very sensitive topic for him. He often does not like to talk about it. I feel that an issue with the lighting could be easily resolved with blinds. I feel that other issues are more pressing and more concerned when it comes to children's safety, children like my son who has special needs. My first question to you is, how about my son's needs? Are his needs going to be taken in consideration as well? Do you think my son's sensory issues with light due to his autism can be resolved by taking away the light that seems to be helping him, and also keeping all the children and other elderly people around this area safe? Because the darkness of the street at McKinley Street is tremendous. There's other lights that currently are not working, but I know because I've been here for so many years, every summer from May to October, I have been living here in Dewey. So I know exactly what every street looks like. When those lights are being fixed that are currently not working, what's going to happen then? I am happy to hear that there's many concerns for families and children and their safety. My other question is, how about that? How about their safety when it comes to poor lighting around our buildings or around our homes or even businesses? If anybody has any questions or doubts about my son's disabilities, please let me know. I'll be happy to share all the information with anyone that still questions why this is important and very important to me in particular. Thank you for your consideration. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much.
David Moskowitz?
Yes, David Moskowitz, and I'm HOA president of Seabreeze Village, which abuts Mama Maria and has an occupancy of 120 people. My residential complex shares a driveway with Mama Maria's. There's been a light up there in some form for 32 years, which lights the parking lot entrance. Miss Lily just recently moved in. I witnessed Franco, who owns Mama Maria's, trying to work with Miss Lily last night. During the meeting, Miss Lily frequently mentioned an electrician she knows, but declined to identify the company. It was proposed that she have her electrician inspect the area and suggest a solution that would provide lighting required by law, while shielding her unit in a plan Franco could consider. And this proposal angered her. And Franco also offered to have Apple Electric come and pay $500 to try to have them adjust the light to her satisfaction, which she also turned down. It's important to read the second sentence of the Dewey Beach Light Code, which says levels should not fall below 1 foot candle. Franco acquired a light meter to measure the lighting, and it measures exactly 1 foot candle. It's not above that. It's actually at the minimum level required by building code and Dewey code. On a premise liability law, property owners have a duty to maintain safe conditions on their property, which includes adequate lighting to prevent accidents, including pedestrian safety that everyone's been talking about. Both the residential community, Seabreeze Village, Mama Maria, and also myself personally, believe it's important to maintain a well-lit driveway for these safety reasons. Adequate lighting is essential not only for the prevention of accidents, but also for the security of residents. We shouldn't have a poorly lit driveway. And again, it's been like that for 32 years lit, because Miss Lily refuses to consider any blinds or curtains and wants all our lights off. And the town should consider it's not a commercial area, it's also residential as well. It's also not certain the lights are solely for Mama Maria's. You have street lights, crosswalk lights, And the neighboring hotel has 2 lights that are currently being repaired that are about to be turned on. And with everyone talking about how it's a pedestrian safety issue, shutting off the lights to an active driveway would be disaster. And I would hope the town would look at also what Franco's wife said about their family as well as all the little kids and elderly people in the community of Sea Breeze Village.
Sure.
Okay, there was a lot of disinformation that was just shared, and I don't even know where to start with that. But I will tell you that an LED light is shining into my home, and it is pointed at the house. And it's not only my house, it's 4 units. So I just want to say, that this David Moskowitz is just stated a bunch of stuff that wasn't true. And I don't know what else to say other than I think that we could come to a resolution. And I really hope that we can, because we all come here to be in our happy place. And I don't really see a reason why this should be allowed to have this major stadium-like light shining into our entire building. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to make it clear to everyone, as public comment, we are listening. As you can see, most of us are writing, we're taking notes. We're not responding to anything. So it's okay. No, it's okay. I just wanted everyone to know. Okay, anyone else?
Okay, so no one else had reached out in chat, but we have a few people in the room. So I'll just say, anyone who wants to make a general comment, if you can unmute.
Non-agenda.
Non-agenda, general comment. Go ahead and unmute and introduce yourself.
Anybody?
Going once. Wait,
And Mr. Mayor,
I don't get to use this that often.
Mr. Mayor, while we're waiting for that,
Yes.
I was asked by Ken Lodge of, I believe, Van Dyke to share comments about Nalu, but I know that needs to go before P and Z perhaps, and I'm going to encourage him to make his comments there.
Great, okay, thank you. All right. With that, we're going to close the non-agenda, non-workshop public comment section, move into the action item. The first thing is to review the May financial statements. The financial statements were up on the website for review, both in summary and detail. Any questions of council for Mishina Hall, our finance director?
State your name, where you're from.
I'd say, if you get a chance to take a look, I mean, so far, the April and May is looking favorable. Some areas that we thought that we took a little bit of a forward step in terms of expectations on transfer, accommodation, hotel are doing well so far this year. And so it seems like so far we're having a good year. I know this is also great weather.
Not a question, but could you take a look at the April report and see if it's complete, if we were all there? For some reason, I thought there was no balance sheet in April, but just be helpful to have a complete set of reports.
I will look at that. Just wanted to update y'all on something. Last week, I think it was, it's all running together. I went to a conference for government finance. Took 25 hours of classes over, I think, 5 days. Most of them, the first 2 days were 4-hour blocks. They covered budgeting, financial reporting, financial policies, best practices, and new federal requirements. It was a tad overwhelming, but I survived. One thing that I took away from the conference was, while talking to other attendees from around the nation, and various panel discussions, is that line item budget presentations, while they may be useful, some data, the majority present a budget that gives the totals of all the expenses of a fund, such as the general operating fund, the public safety fund, the beach safety. Then administration is tasked with using that total to make sure it works. The governing bodies are informed of how much is needed for salaries and wages, but they don't care about the taxes. That's not their problem.
any benefit cost changes, such as we experienced this year, would definitely be presented, because that's something that affects the bottom line. Additionally, financial summaries are being presented quarterly. But full financial, or more frequently, but full financials are only like every 6 to 12 months. And there was a study done by the Government Finance Officers Association as to financials, and they're looking at what is a best practice now, what would help the towns. And they're finding that basically less than 10% of the governing bodies in most towns even understand what they're looking at in the financials. Now, this town, we're above, we dwarf them. We have some very intelligent people here that look in everything and understand it.
So we're at 15%?
I was gonna go 50 to 55, There's a webinar on the 15th that I'll be attending called Rethinking Financial Reporting. And the premise is that to get away from the line items, it's overwhelming to too many people. The general public doesn't want to look at 100 we have minimum of 100 items and we're a small town. The bigger cities, nobody wants to look through them. And they're looking at ways to better present the information to the stakeholders of the town and the governing bodies so that to better help them run the towns for the benefit of everyone. It's just more information that I'm going to gather to help us better run this town.
Thank you, Sheena.
Thank you, Sheena.
Thank you, Sheena.
I would just make this comment. I commend you for attending that session. We've been talking about the Government Finance Officers Association for several years now, and the material that group put together was largely responsible for us being able to put together the funding strategy that we have. So thank you for doing that. Not sure I agree with all those recommendations, and I think it's something that we would have to talk about collectively in terms of presentation and degree of understanding. But again, thank you for doing this.
And Mr. Mayor, as we move forward and work with Sheena and the commissioners, we'd like to move to a more streamlined process, but of course it will be as we brief the commissioners on it.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, the next element is number 2, discuss possible vote to approve an ordinance to amend Chapter 24 to combine the Investment and Budget and Finance Committee into a single Finance Committee. We'll open up for public comment in a second, but I just wanted to give a little bit of an overview. Since I got to town, I've been part of the Audit, Investment, as well as the Budget and Finance Committee prior to becoming a commissioner. We have relied upon outside counsel, not that counsel, but advice from Brown Advisory, who's been able to match our defined investment risk profile and to move us forward and to put things in a very protected or, the risk that is prudent for our size of an organization for the funds that we manage. We experienced through those years a challenge to have a quorum, to have enough people at those meetings. And one of the thoughts here was that as we have progressed internally to the town hall financially and relied upon our outside investment brokers, is to also possibly combine those two organizations, not diminishing any responsibility from that group, but to have them work in unison of the budget, the finance and investment team, because they are linked, they are relatively linked. This is not meant as a proposal to potentially to change anything we're doing right now, but more streamline what we have. So with that, I'll open it up for public comment. Just whatever we decide is fine with me. It's just an option to help to make a change.
Should we discuss first?
We can if you'd like.
I mean, it's up to
Let's get public comment.
Let's do public comment first.
Yeah.
Anyone here for public comment on budget, finance, plus investment?
Anybody online?
No one is speaking up yet.
Well, let's open up for council, and if anybody comes, let me know.
Sure.
Okay.
May I speak first?
Sure.
I am the liaison to the investment committee. That is one of my roles here on council. And a lot of the public comment that I have received is people being concerned that somehow our oversight of our investments will be diminished by this combination of the two committees. The investment committee currently meets quarterly, and when we don't have a quorum present, we can't meet. So I'm not sure how not meeting allows us to have oversight of our investments. I have been pursuing options with the mayor about getting more people on the committee. That's been a struggle, and we currently are without a chair. So this seemed like the best way to go forward to keep our town investments safe.
I can weigh in on it. Budget and finance, we start talking in November, December, and our fiscal year starts in April. So there's a lot of lag time. So from April 1st till November, nothing going on. So if we have the resources to, throw those quarterly meetings in there. So, I'm okay with whatever we choose. I mean, if we can find a chair and maybe some new members.
I'm good with that too.
But we need to grow. And it's been, for as long as you've been here and even longer than that, it's always been a challenge with that committee. And hey, we need good people to step up and volunteer for it. The investments get managed by an outside group. What the committee does is, they get presented whatever the advisory group's doing, and it's not a whole lot of committee work because they're not stockbrokers. I mean, these are people that are managing your funds. Like, I don't know how often you meet with your financial advisors, but I do it twice a year, but not every. So at least they're looking at it quarterly and managing it every day. So whatever we decide, I'm fine with. And if Elizabeth would want to, we can be co-liaisons for it and double up the resources for it. But if anybody out there wants to join that committee, be happy to have you. There you go. All right.
Yeah, I think I've been liaison. I know the budget and finance, and I think investment as well, or at least I've stuck my nose in your business at some point.
Yes,
No.
you do attend.
Yeah, I
Yes.
can do that. So I'm not opposed to merging the two committees. I think I've heard some expressions of concern about the mix of disciplines that we have. The people in budget and finance really attuned to some of the investment issues and vice versa. So I guess if we were to go forward with this, one of the things I would like to do is to try to have some assurance that we're getting an appropriate mix of disciplines, so that we really can comment, and people who look intently at the investment reports and other people who maybe look at the budget reports a bit more, in a finer way, more fine-tuned way. How many members do we have on each committee at this point?
Kate, what is our current,
I think there's 4 on
because we
investment.
had a resignation, it was our chair, but we had somebody added. I feel like I'm treading water and not making progress.
So we have somewhere around 4 people. How many on budget and finance at this point?
There's 5 on investment and 5
And 5
currently
on, including our chair, which is here, Dan Richfield.
I mean, I'm only asking this because I would like to make sure that we kind of have all of the disciplines covered that we need to in moving this committee forward. We do have in our code, there's kind of an outline of the relative risk that we're willing to take with investments. And then we have an investment policy that's actually developed, monitored, and managed by the investment committee at this point. So that would have to move to a new finance committee. And I'm wondering, unless we have the right mix of people, I'm wondering if we should provide a new finance committee if we decide to go that way. The opportunity to get some independent expertise in it for taking a look at the investment strategies we currently have on the books and making some decisions about that. That's just, an option. Again, I'm not against combining the committees. Getting active, keeping committees active is really tough. It's largely driven by the chair. Finding a good chair is often very difficult. So, if we've got someone willing to lead this effort, and it's an important effort, I think we need to take advantage of that.
I volunteered Dan over there. So.
Yeah, he's already agreed. But I also like to say that, the investment committee is charter-based in terms of its existence and how it operates. The budget and finance is ad hoc. The benefit of this, whether it's formally or informally, is that we could have one agenda, one meeting to go through all of those elements for those committees versus 2 separate meetings. And
So you're just clarifying something for me. So I thought they were both ad hoc. So the investment committee is in the charter?
Yeah.
It's in the code.
Code.
It's in the town.
Okay, well, that's
I don't
different
think
than
it's in
the
the
charter.
charter. I don't think
Make
it's
sure.
in the charter, is it? The audit committee is in the charter.
I thought the investment committee was also.
So the question I had is actually, was a question for Fred. So the issue with getting quorum, if it's not a chartered committee, I think quorum is 50% of the membership, if I'm not mistaken. And I think if it's not a chartered committee, only one person needs to be in person. Isn't that what
That
we
is
voted on?
correct, and we made those changes to help the investments committee be able to meet.
Right.
Because I could get one person here, and then other people remotely, but I'm now failing to even get the remotely's,
Wow, okay.
or enough to make quorum. I need 3 total,
Yeah,
and I
so-
can get 2.
So Fred, do I understand that correctly on the number of people who have to be around?
Yeah, I mean, typically your membership is going to be an odd number, so it's more than 50%, but yes.
Okay. But only one person needs to be in the room.
That's a,
We did vote to make that for this,
yeah,
for
that's a
investment
local
committee.
policy of the town.
Right. Yeah.
In correction, it is chapter 24 of our code, not charter.
So the only thing, besides Gary's point that it's important that we have both sets of skills in the committee, as long as the committee has both those type of skills on it, I think we're in good shape. The only thing I would think about is, do we think a committee of 5 people is going to be sufficient to do both tasks? And that's a
Well, it's a
question.
committee of 10.
It'll be,
It'll be a committee of 10 people.
Yeah.
But then we get into a tough quorum issue.
No, it's actually easier to achieve a quorum the more members you have.
Why is that? So it's not 50%?
Probability argument, like, write it out.
Oh, no.
Are you testing me on the math?
No, I'm serious, I've had this, because I have the climate change committee, and they have even more members than that.
Right. But it's still 50% of 10 then?
It's still, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And it should be an odd number, in case there's a vote.
All right, everyone's heard our, Dan, would you like to come up to the podium and give us your 18 cents?
Just had surgery, so. Dan Hirschfeld, 103 Chesapeake Street. I am chair of the Budget Finance Committee. Question with regard to credentials and experience, I know there are questions out there. I have an undergraduate degree from Duke University in accounting. I have an MBA from Loyola College. I have a master's in finance from Loyola College. I was a previous chartered financial analyst in my previous life, and I currently serve on a couple of nonprofit boards where I am on the committees for our investments as well as budget and finance. So that's my background.
And while I'm also a Loyola grad, we did not know each other there, so I just want to let that know. Any questions now from the public after hearing our thoughts? All right. May I have a motion?
I'll motion to combine the committees into one with Elizabeth and I, co-liaisons for the group. Yep.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
and so the next meeting is July 11th. I
July
believe.
11th, okay.
Let me double check.
Yep. All right, number 3, discuss policy vote to request the infrastructure committee to consider amendment to chapter 93.2 to establish a cap for the infrastructure fund. This was a thought process in terms of when we started the set-asides and putting funds into the set-asides, what we were going to need for a defined period of time for our streets and infrastructure to make sure that the conditions were above expectations for the town members. At the last check, and Gary, you can tell me if I'm wrong, I believe that is up to 770,000 roughly. When we looked at our projects over the next 2 to 3 years, we're looking at 200,000 to 300,000. Noting that when we do have certain streets and infrastructure, our town manager has been very successful on getting state grants to fund those things. So the question here is, at what point do certain funds become overfunded, and should any excess funds be put towards other projects that we need? So with that, I'll open it up for public comment, if anyone would like to. Kate, anybody on Zoom would like to provide public comment?
Yes, I would like to provide a comment, but I don't know if the comment needs to be directly about the agenda topics.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's not related to the agenda topics.
Okay.
I wasn't given a second opportunity to speak, that's why I asked.
Ma'am, we try not to, and I apologize, we try not to get into public comment of rebuttal. We understand completely the issue at hand with the lighting and the lighting codes and both sides of the story. And we will address that, not in this meeting, but in a future meeting as well as collectively with Town Hall.
Thank you. I really appreciate your support.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
so much.
You're welcome. Okay, with that, can I have a motion? What did you want to do after we did the motion to, or do you want to? Oh, you go ahead.
Well, I
Yes,
sort of-
no, go
yeah,
ahead.
sort of
You're
discuss
wearing,
it.
you're wearing Oriole orange, you can go.
Early on, I was on planning and zoning for a while. I was on the comprehensive development plan committee a number of years ago. And, you know, I first came onto the council, there was this big report that was underway at that time and talked about all of the various stormwater management projects that were possible. There were big price tag numbers associated with it. And, you know, from that point forward, I've sort of assumed that with respect to infrastructure, we never have enough money to address the problems that we have in infrastructure. So I kind of find this notion of capping that fund as odd to me. I mean, I think the climate is changing. A lot of people still deny it. I believe the weather is changing. It's getting more severe. Look what's happened in Florida. I mean, they've been inundated with rain, by this ocean of rain down there. At some point, we're going to face something like this. And, you know, I think we need to do the best job we can with infrastructure. So to take this money and put it somewhere else, and one question is, if not there, where else would you put it? And there are some other things to consider. I think there's a natural intersection between the Infrastructure Committee and the Climate Change Committee. One of the recommendations that the Climate Change Committee had last year was to have a resiliency fund. Bethany has one. Lewis has included a resiliency fund in their planning. And based on the conversations that we had with the Institute for Public Administration last year, when those recommendations were being developed, there are a couple of variations on that resiliency fund. It can be reactive, and that's largely what Bethany is chosen to do. They're assembling a pot of money so that, and they adjusted their property taxes, which I know we can't do, in order to fund that. So that they have this pot of money in the event that something bad happens and they need some money to help recover from that. It can be proactive, which is more of the intersection, I think, with infrastructure. It just seems to me that to put this money somewhere else, and hopefully the proposal wouldn't be to swallow it up in the operating budget because it's gone at that point, and you're not going to get it back. I think we need to hold on to this money, think through. I don't know if we've gone comprehensively through that report, which is now about 7 years old now. I don't know if we've gone comprehensively through that and decided, well, this is really all we can do. We can't, do this project or that project because it's not feasible. We're never going to have enough money for it. But again, I feel a lot more comfortable having this kind of money set aside so that as these events do come up, we've got a source of money to turn to. The town has become a lot better at getting grant money, and that's all to their credit. They have really done a tremendous job over the last several years in taking advantage of those resources. But this would not be something I would support. And if we do anything with some of the money there, I would begin to put some seed money into the notion of a resiliency fund for the town.
Commissioner Persinger, when you think of the funds that we've created, specifically in regards to the rainy day fund, what committee oversees the rainy day fund in terms of its uses and scenario planning?
I don't think there is a specific committee, but I think the rainy day fund, despite its name, is not for a real rainy day. I think it's to keep the town operating in the sense, it's really for town operating expenses. It's not to provide, a pot of money where you can help residents recover from a particular.
I think, so I don't disagree with your point of view in terms of making sure that we have funds for the future and to protect ourselves against climate change. I may disagree on the use of the rainy day fund because theoretically our rainy days will cause us to have decreased revenue in town associated with parking and other elements within this town. I'd ask that we can table this because it's not, the thought process here is to how do we increase the funds, not in the operating budget, but towards town hall. And as we move into town hall, when we'll know in September, October, from the budget standpoint, what numbers we really need to hit, even though that we're currently at, assuming it's around $7 million.
Anywhere from 7 to 8 million. Originally, they quoted around 6.2.
Right.
They've come back and said maybe between 7 and 8, but we won't know until bidding comes back.
But right now, we have approximately 6.2. 6.2 million in there. And maybe we can address that after we have some firm numbers from town in terms of what numbers we're gonna need to finance town hall. But I would like to see, and we can table this, it's fine, but I would like to see us to understand, and for the community to understand, if we're sitting in $2.6 million separately on the rainy day fund, what is the scenario in which that those rainy day funds are going to be used? I think there's a conversation we need to have other than just putting the money into the rainy day fund.
Just in response to that, I mean, there's obviously a reasonable conversation to be had about generating some more revenues for building the town hall. There was no background like that presented for this particular item, and to ask the infrastructure committee to help us limit their funding doesn't really make sense. And if we want to put a cap on it, or if we want to identify some other uses for the infrastructure budget, or some parts of the infrastructure budget, I think we can do that here. I'm not sure that the committee necessarily needs to be asked to do that. The rainy day fund, again, I think the rainy day fund is anticipated to provide some support or some carryover if in fact our revenues do fall short for some reason, or if our expenditures do get out of whack for some reason, we need some additional revenues to draw on for a short period of time. And, those are all conversations that we can have. We clearly need to make sure that we have the right level of resources for the town hall, and that's probably a larger conversation.
I agree
Yeah,
with that.
if we were to vote on this today, I would vote against it.
Okay, fair enough.
The only thing I'd bring up is, we know the town hall is going to be expensive. We know we don't have necessarily all the money lined up for where it's going to likely come in. But I think that we need to just get the numbers and then make decisions at that point in time.
Right.
And, you could make an argument that there's portions of the town hall project that are infrastructure related, right?
Mhm.
So I think what makes the most sense for us to do is simply to get the numbers and then decide what we need to do, including potentially changing elements of the code that restrict what we can do with certain money, right? We might have to take a look at that as well. But let's just get the number, and then we can figure out how to do it.
I agree with that.
Agreed.
I agree. All right. Can I have a motion to table?
Motion to table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good conversation. Number 4, discuss possibly vote to amend the previously adopted ordinance 836 regarding the effective date of rezoning of the property located at 24 Houston Street. I think we have the 24 Houston team here. Even though he almost ran me off the road at the Gordon Pond last weekend.
I did?
Yeah, he did.
Really?
Yeah. On your left.
Here he comes. On my bike. Yes. Yeah. I thought you were accusing me of speeding. I'm never.
No, we were deep in the.
I was riding hard on the bike.
Yes, you were. On my left.
Okay. Well, first, thank you all for your continued service to the community. It's a thankless job. I don't know how you guys do it, all for free. So as a member of the community, I'm very grateful. Thank Fred and Jim for their continued help with us, and thank you, Chief, for all of your work keeping our streets safe. So I'll try to keep this brief, and we're sorry to be back here with another request, but on April 12th, the Commissioners unanimously approved to rezone 24 Houston Street from RB2 to RR. Prior to that, on March 1st, Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously approved sending it to all of you. At our request, you had made the ordinance 836 effective on October 1st. We had specifically requested that because there was an expectation that the hotel may be operated for the season. It turns out, for reasons beyond our control, that's not going to happen. So we would like to move forward as promptly as possible with the redevelopment of it. I would say that we were at the site only 2 times, and on both occasions the neighboring property owners came by. So we've met with all of the neighbors on each of the 3 sides, and all of them thanked us, are happy that the hotel is going to be, or the land's going to be redeveloped, and asked us if it, the sooner the better from their perspective. So we agree with them, and since it can't be opened, we would like to promptly move forward with redeveloping it. So we would respectfully request that ordinance 836, section 3 be amended to change the effective date from October 1st, 2024 to June 21st, 2024. I would just point out, we could have had it effective April 12th, so, everything being equal, we're just asking for it to be changed, just given the unforeseen circumstances. We do have our demo permit in that was sent 2 weeks ago. That process could start either way, whether this is done or not, but some of the other processes, like getting the permits for the new homes, can't be started until the rezoning, unless the rezoning is effective immediately, so.
So this is about the permitting process on the homes, not necessarily the construction or pile driving that would obviously can't occur in the summer season anyway.
Yeah.
So you're trying to get plans approved.
Plans approved, so
you
we can
move
get
forward
started.
when you can.
Promptly.
So this is a date change to that ordinance.
Yeah, just a date change, so, thanks very much.
I'll motion to approve that.
Well, how about any, okay.
I'll second.
All right, on,
So if I could,
No, you discuss.
it might be the most appropriate, this is a little bit of an unusual request, and typically, if there was a motion that was adopted that called for the, like a payment of funds, once they're paid, you wouldn't be able to revisit it in this fashion. But because no action has been taken, I don't think it's at all inappropriate. I would though ask you to start with a motion to reconsider, just quickly, vote that through, that opens it up, and then follow that up with a motion to amend. It sounds overly technical, but it's probably the best way to go forward.
So I will move to reconsider the ordinance 836 previously adopted by this body.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And then a motion to amend would be in order.
I motion that we amend the previously adopted ordinance 836 to change the effective date to the current date
Immediately.
immediately.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Slow down.
Apologize.
On your left.
Thank you very much.
Number 5, discuss the possible vote to request the Planning and Zoning Commission to review and provide recommendations regarding green space requirements as recommended by the Charter and Code Review Committee.
Yeah, this is an issue, I believe it started with the town staff. It was taken up by our Charter and Code Review Committee. And there are some recommendations here that they provided for our consideration, and hopefully for the consideration of planning and zoning. Currently, this is just in the NR district. So we're talking just basically the north end of town. The current requirements are a minimum of 15% of gross lot area dedicated to planning and beautification area. A minimum of 50% of this requirement shall be located in the front yard. Part of the problem here is that planning and beautification is a little bit non-specific. One person's view of beauty is another person's view of ugly. So the recommendations here are to tighten this up and to also tighten up the requirements for what we want to now define as green space. Green space would be defined as vegetation, such as grass, trees, shrubs, and other plants which are permanently planted into the ground. This recommendation would increase total green space to 25% of the total lot area. Again, just in the NR district, that's the sole place that we're talking about this. And then for the NR district, all front yard areas shall be green space except for a 20 by 18 space for a driveway and a 4 by 18 space for a walkway. Remaining green space would be distributed between the side yards and the backyard areas. Driveway and walkway areas shall have borders that contain the materials for those surfaces within the driveway and walkway spaces. And that existing front yard spaces that are covered with non-green space materials can remain, but except for driveways and walkways, any removal or replacement of those materials must convert these areas to green space. So that's the recommendation that the committee has come up with, and the proposal here is to let planning and zoning take a look at this and provide some recommendations back to us.
Gary, am I misreading? Well, is there a potential unintended consequence associated with pools that may, if somebody wanted a pool right now in their front or by admit?
I think you could certainly read it that way, yes.
Okay. I have no problem. Any questions for Gary?
No, I think this needs to go to P&Z.
Let them take a look at it
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the consequences on anything else like pools that currently exist in the front yard. Okay. Any conversation, any public comment on it? So I usually fail at that. No. Kate? All right. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, number 6, discuss the possible vote to request the Planning and Zoning Commission to review and provide recommendations regarding downspout and runoff water requirements as recommended by the Charter and Code Review Committee.
Again, this is an issue that started with the town staff. Charter and Code Review took this up and came up with a set of recommendations here. There have been some situations where homeowners have done some renovation, maybe it's a new build. They have their storm gutter lines running right out almost to the edge of the property. Clearly, that's not containing the storm water within the property. It's running onto someone else's property and creating a problem for them. So the recommendation from Charter and Code Review is that we should establish a requirement that gutters and downspouts be included as part of the construction or renovation of the building, and that the discharge point for storm water should be at least 4 feet from the property line. There's some alternative language that I've included here, and I'll take responsibility for that. That's my own language. And that is to say that instead of the last bullet about discharge point being 4 feet from the property line, say instead that the stormwater runoff in any lot shall be contained within the boundaries of that lot. The discharge point for stormwater must be at least 4 feet from the property line or greater distance if necessary to contain stormwater. So that gets at the notion of, if you're generating stormwater on your property, you have a responsibility for containing it within your yard and not creating a problem for someone else. So those are the recommendations, and the proposal again is to send this to planning and zoning.
Quick clarification, though. I know I understand the issue. I saw some of the pictures that had been sent through. Would this change the downspout and stormwater runoff only be for new or for existing? It's like if a neighbor right now, I'm just curious from your point of view, if a neighbor right now has his stormwater downspout pointing right to my property, would they be forced to change that?
The recommendation does not address that.
Okay.
The context here is construction or renovation of the building. There's an option there for us or for P&Z to take up the situation where someone already has a problem.
Okay.
I think it should.
I think it should, yeah. Any other questions?
No, let's send it to P&Z. Let's keep them busy.
And we want P&Z to look at both past and future?
And provide a recommendation. Yes.
Thank you for the clarification. And I like bullet point 2 better. It's clear.
Yeah. So can I have a motion?
Motion.
A
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, send to P&Z. I love putting you all at the end, 5, 6, and 7, right by 4. Number 7, discuss the current administrative process and fees associated with building permits. Commissioner Persiger.
Yeah, we have, I'm sure we'll find my exhibit on that. We have had several conversations about this over the last several months, actually. Dave Lyons, our chairman of Charter and Code Review, has been involved in those discussions. Town staff obviously have been involved. We've talked with FEMA, we've talked with NREC. We've come up with a number of recommendations for trying to streamline the process for small projects. This really was brought to us by one of the businesses here in town who said, we have situations all the time where we have work that needs to be done immediately. We have a broken toilet. We need to get it fixed the next day. We may have some other plumbing issue that we need to address immediately. And to expect us to go through the building permit process is unreasonable. We really can't deal with that. It would happen for people who rent their own properties, individual homeowners who rent their properties. Things just happen. You have to address some of these situations. Excuse me, you have to address them quickly. The issue for 2/3 of the town is that we're in a flood zone. And because we participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, there's certain requirements that we have to agree to and to meet. The basic requirement is that if there's work to be done, whether it's construction, repairs, or maintenance, you need to have a plan. The town has to have a record of what that work is and the cost of that work, and to make sure and be able to ensure that people who monitor the National Flood Insurance Program, and in fact, we are abiding by all of the ordinance and the requirements of being a part of this insurance program. And I think, as everybody knows, the value of being part of that program is that we get lower rates for flood insurance. So we've had several proposals that we brought to the town staff. We've not been able to come to an agreement on something that we really could test. I think the town has recently just hired a new person for the building permit staff. They believe that they can handle these things, these small projects, on a pretty quick basis. If you look at the most recent data on building permits, you'll see that some of those permits, they're actually turning around same day. So the proposal here that we would like to have the town go along with us on is, first of all, to reinforce the need for a permit for all projects. You don't necessarily need a permit for everything in the northern end of town that's not in the flood zone. There, in fact, is an current exemption for maintenance projects with less than $1,000 in material cost, but it doesn't apply to flood zone properties, and there isn't good common understanding about that. We would like the town to reinforce and consider a written policy that emergency projects may proceed when a permit cannot be obtained immediately, but they do then have to come back and apply and provide the required documentation. I think that's a standing town policy.
Right.
I think all we're asking here is that they make that a lot more visible. Then for the next 6 months, we would ask the town to provide some data on the time from application to issuance of the permit for projects with a total cost, labor and materials, less than $7,500. Those are the kinds of small projects that we think are worthwhile taking a look at. And then at the end of 6 months, we would summarize those data. Actually, we could, this proposal talks about doing it each month, and then evaluating at the end of the 6 months. We would continue to collect feeds for all of these projects. And then at the end of the 6 months, we could evaluate the data and determine whether or not the system is operating efficiently, or perhaps we have to go back to some of those other ideas that we've had for streamlining this process rather. So I have not heard objection from the town to this proposal, and if there is objection, I guess this is the opportunity to raise it.
No, there isn't. We'd like to thank you for all your work on this, Commissioner Persinger, and want to just say over again, if it's an emergency late at night or on a weekend when town hall's closed, by all means, the property owner, the business owner should get it fixed and then just come back in on Monday and follow up with the paperwork. If we want to be part of the FEMA program, we have to have the paper.
Greg?
Any other comments?
No, it's listed as a discuss item, so it's really, there's nothing to vote on this, but yeah, I mean, we need to streamline it. I mean, businesses can't operate. You don't know how many times a toilet breaks in a restaurant. I mean, and you gotta wait for town hall to open up before you can fix it. So sometimes we can't get out of our own way, and this is a pretty
I would just say also, we can't have a kind of two-tier system. We can't do one thing for businesses and another thing for all the other property owners. There is something in the Code of Federal Regulations that says for the purposes of this program, insurance program, we have to treat everybody the same.
Yeah. And Jim has a comment here.
Yes, Mr. Dedes.
If you don't mind, I just want to make it very clear that if, for example, if somebody says their toilet breaks, they call us, fix it. It's an emergency. We've never stopped an emergency. And almost everyone that does that comes back, gives us a permit. I don't think that's a problem as much as some people are saying that it might be a problem. If you're painting something, that's not an emergency. I mean, you can always get it's not like all of a sudden you decide I have to paint it today. I mean, those things are planned for, but actual real emergencies, we've never denied one. And I want look at our building permits that we provide to you all, and look at the applicant, and you will see that almost, I would say 80 to 85% are done within 2 to 3 business days. There are some that take longer, but they're more complicated, and we have explanations for that. But we're happy to have it all reviewed in 6 months.
And some things do have to go to the county.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So I assume that this is an ask of the town, that you'll be able to track the dates that the permits received, when they've been issued, so we can look at the turnaround times. I don't know if we have that historically, or, and at the same time, look at process improvements.
I think since Commissioner Persinger asked us to start looking at this, Jim's been starting that project, and we'll be able to provide you the data to show that we're turning most things around in 2 to 3 days.
Wonderful.
We do have it historically. We do have it historically. It's in our Edmonds report, and it's on the report that you all get every month.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay.
Just, for the record, just to understand the magnitude of the problem, I just want people to understand that in fiscal year 2024, the town processed 468 permits, ranging from $1,000 up to $3 million. So it's a wide range of activity that they do, some not very complicated, some very complicated. And they do a great job on most, great job. I'm just gonna leave it at that, great job.
Good staff.
All right. We're gonna start, Kate, do we end the town meeting and convene the workshop, or what is your?
I'm just gonna convene. You don't have to adjourn anything.
Right, so just convene the workshop. All right, so I want to set this up for the participants that are here. You could laugh at me as I give you some background. In January, I was bored, and I read the charter and code back to front and front to back and front to back and back and forth. And I talked to Gary Persinger, Commissioner Persinger, about it, and he said, "How bored were you?" So the issue had to do with me looking at our lens in 1981 versus a lens in 2024. And it has nothing to do with a personal agenda or asking for change, but just having a conversation. And that conversation is, are these elements, and by the way, the list that's here under the workshop for charter and code, this isn't, we don't have to stop here in terms of conversations, because that's all this is. It's really is a conversation to make sure that we're consistent. I can say honestly what I thought was going to be a positive of, hey, let's talk about what we've got going on, has put more emails in my inbox than ever before. So, which I appreciate it, because I think we should be having conversations. And again, this is a conversation about, are we where we want to be? Are we going to be where, based upon the code? I remember a few years back, I had an issue with something after becoming mayor, and I talked to our representative, Pete Schwarzkopf, about it, and he just laughed at me as the new guy, and he just said, you can't let the code get in the way of common sense. So it's, what is the common sense? What do we really have out there? So with that, part of this is to just look at what we have, and these are several elements, and we don't necessarily because this is just a conversation, just raise your hand and talk about it. Because the end-all goal here is that if there are any recommendations, if there's anything, and I encourage you to go and read the charter and to read through the code, and if there's things that you look at it just doesn't make sense in 2024, then raise your hand at future meetings or send me an email, or Dave Lyons, who's our chair, to just say, can we take a look at this to see if this is where Dewey wants to be going forward? Any other comments? Really?
Well,
let's go over each item.
I think it's an important point that, anybody can bring an issue to us, can propose an issue to us. And I think, at least I certainly feel an obligation to look into that. If you think there's something that needs to be changed in the charter or the town code, you can bring that to us. You certainly can propose that just as easily as anybody else. And if there's merit to it, we can certainly move through the process on that. But if we don't know what the issues are, if we don't know that you're having a problem with that, you haven't brought it to our attention, it may not get the treatment that perhaps it deserves.
And just to be clear, I'll throw out these topics for conversation, and if there's an overwhelming, you're out of your mind, then it's done. But since you're here, I figure we can have a conversation. And I also wanted to be very clear on another, I'll let Dave.
Yeah, I do have one question.
Yeah.
And you might want to clarify further.
Yeah, Dave, you need to come up.
And the reason we're asking people to come up is we are also Zoom.
Oh,
And if you're
I'm sorry.
if you're in the audience, the
Yeah.
other people out on Zoom can't see or hear you, and they just wonder what we're up to.
Yeah, no problem. So my name is Dave Lyons. I'm the chairman of the Code and Charter Committee. The only point I want to ask Bill for you to clarify to everybody is if we do make a change to the charter, what is the process?
Sure, that's
so
great.
everybody understands
Sure.
that even though we're having a conversation here, there's a whole process between here and a change.
Thank you for reminding me. So the way the charter works, any changes to the charter need to go up to Legislative Hall in Dover to have the approval from our legislators as well as being signed off by the governor. June 30th, the session ends. So they're not back into session until January 1st of next year. So one of the things we did in a prior meeting is that we agreed to invest in an outside review of our charter and code and have people evaluate whether or not there's any ambiguities, if there's anything that's just not consistent, inconsistencies. So this is a conversation around possibly changing for a January submission for them to look at overall what this means. But again, we're going to have that body of change that comes out of that outside third party that charter and code is going to review. But also and again, this is conversation here, but anything else that comes out of these conversations about possible review at the charter and code as recommendations, then like today, whatever happens, we'll go to charter and code for them to review, to then provide some recommendations back to council that may end up in a change to the charter that would then have to get approved at legislative hall. Did I get everything?
Yeah.
Okay. I also feel like I do want to just state one thing is that, the first two, I know probably were the ones that created the most influx in my inbox.
Mine too.
But I also want to make sure everyone understands, I am a town resident, so it doesn't matter, and my property's not an LLC, so it doesn't matter. So it's not a personal interest.
I'm the same, so.
So right now, let's talk about the number of commissioners as residents. The original thought process that was brought up is that in 1981, we did not have internet. In 1981, we did not have Zoom. We didn't have cell phones. And there's a lot of connectivity that could still occur without having to be here physically. And we all learned that through COVID, that we were able to operate and move forward. And the question was do we need to have 2 residents as commissioner versus or 1, or what is that number?
Or 3.
Or 3.
Or 5.
And conversationally, it could be, it's a challenge in my opinion, so we're all just residents of Dewey Beach right now. If you try to, with only 170 homes or 330 residents living here full time, out of the 1,800 homes, it may be a challenge to find 3 qualified people to sit on council to hear your concerns and to bring them forward. So that may be an issue. I'll throw as a hypothetical, the other hypothetical that we've discussed is that, I'll use Paul because I don't want to use me. So if Paul decides next year not to run, and therefore, and if I'm reelected, we need another one resident on council, which means that if there are non-residents that file for election and no residents, whatever resident put their hand in automatically gets on council. So it's one of the unintended consequences of having proper representation here in town. So I'll throw it out to the town. I'll throw it out to council or the town for any comments.
I have the one. The way we have it with 2 people now, Bill signs a check, so there's a contractor needs a check. So if Bill's here, I'm here, one of us goes and we're the second signature. So it's helpful to have 2 commissioners that are residents, just because, hey, somebody could be on vacation. So somehow you got to keep the business rolling. You can't wait. So, and I think pretty much how they settled it back in 1981 of when they put the charter together. So 2's been there. Do we have a reason to go to 3 or 4 or 5 or go down from 2 to 1 to 0? So that's the public comment part. So we can open it up.
You got Gary.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Paul to a large degree. I mean, the 2 requirements work pretty well for us. I don't recall that we've had any situations where a resident has become automatically elected because there was no other resident running against that person. I can see at least one person who's been involved in this much longer than I have, and maybe she has encountered, a situation like that, but I have not seen it. We have had it with the last 2 elections or 3 elections. We actually haven't had an election because the incumbents were the only ones who were running. Those were the only candidates, so they were automatically elected. It's kind of the same thing. If you drop it to just one resident requirement, then you have the issue of, well, how do you elect the mayor? I really feel pretty strongly that the mayor has to be a resident. You need to have somebody here full time to.
Oh, I agree.
I agree with that too.
With some exceptions.
Well, yeah. No. I think we're all in favor of just keeping it 2. Is there anyone from a public that would see there being a benefit to the town of Dewey Beach if that number was to change? All right, then I don't see this being an issue. All right, wipe it. Charter section number 10, possible expansion of voting rights to LLC. This probably was at least 100 to 150 emails in my inbox since last Friday. And the thought process, again, please bear with me. I was bored. It was January. And I'm an accountant by trade. I have my undergraduate in finance and my master's in accounting from Loyola College. So I understand the concepts and the principles. In my assumption, because one of the things that we're looking at code is when things actually changed and like certain dates. And it's when the ability to vote in the town of Dewey Beach was extended to residents, leaseholders, and trusts in 1981. In 1981, the LLCs, LLP, corporations didn't even exist. And so I believe that came around 91 or 92, if my memory serves correctly. To this date, the federal government doesn't even recognize LLCs in terms of your taxation when you're filing. If you have your business in LLC, it is either a single member LLC that flows to a Schedule C on your tax return, or it elects to be treated as a partnership, or it elects to be treated as a corporation. So there's no LLC filing. The thought process here, and I probably should have, not to look at corporations, because my opinion as a resident, don't want corporations to be determining how the town runs. Or even the LLPs are difficult because you would want to do one, but it really was focused on this single member. Are you recording me? No. It's the single member LLCs where we have somewhere between 100 and 150, I can get the actual number of residents who have put their property into an LLC like a trust to protect themselves from liability. Limited liability corporation is what it stands for. And are they being adequately represented? And that was kind of like open that up as part of the conversation. I can tell you that 90% of my emails were don't let the corporations know the residents should be the only ones to vote. I'm not sure everyone had that full information of what we're just trying to understand. This isn't about the corporations voting and taking away rights. It's just the possibility of if Mr. Rainier decides he wants to rent his place out and he puts it in an LLC, he can't have a vote on anything that may affect him, including accommodation tax. It's in terms of the rental rates. So, and again, my property I own. So it's not about an individual thing, but I'll throw it out there for conversation of, are we happy with where it is? Or do we want to make a change?
No.
No?
Come on up.
No. Come on, give me more than no. I'm going through my second glass of water here.
I'm Chuck Litchford, 26A Reed Avenue. I'd be concerned about a larger corporation coming in with basically unlimited resources and being able to form LLCs in maybe the numbers of hundreds and being able to stack council, change our codes, change our thing, change our entire way of life. So corporations that have unlimited resources to manipulate laws, to manipulate LLCs, to do those sorts of things, to actually completely change our town.
Okay, cool. Got it. Anyone else?
My name is Rhonda Housley. I live on Reed Avenue. And just before we came, I looked up the list of property owners that are LLC owners in Dewey Beach, and there's 35 of them. And my opinion is that if they have an LLC, the whole definition of LLC is a limited liability corporation to limit their liability. I think the homeowners need to stay the primary deciders of what happens in Dewey Beach and not corporations.
Okay.
We have many thousands of people who apply to be LLC owners in the state of Delaware who have no intentions of living or ever coming to Delaware. In opening that door, you set precedents to allowing people living anywhere to come in and make a decision. That sets a precedence that I disagree with. And
Good.
Thank you,
That's
sir.
fine. Thank you so much.
If I can make a comment.
Sure.
So, thank you for your comment on that. I think the intention isn't to have a corporation, but a person is if I bought, my accountant said, hey, buy the house and put it in an LLC for tax reasons, liability reasons, et cetera, should I have a vote? Or I'm a person too, but I formed a corporation to own that piece of property. Should we have a guardrail that says one property, one vote?
I think you have, like, back up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a town hall workshop.
My name's Rhonda again. My issue, just in case you missed it the
You
first time.
changed your last name, didn't you?
Yeah. My opinion for that statement is that you have a choice when you make a decision to own a property or have a corporation own the property. There are pros and cons with each choice. You make a decision to have an LLC as your cover, as your hide under.
Right.
Then you don't have a person who gets to be liable for it. That should come with its disadvantages for having that choice.
Okay.
And this is one of the choices. No, you don't get to vote in Dewey Beach.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Come on up.
While he's coming up, I don't think it changes the tenor of her remarks, but the C in LLC stands for company, and that is meant to be a distinction between corporations and companies. They're not meant to be one and the same.
I must have forgot that in the last 30 years. Okay.
Russ Myers, property owner for about 20 years, been coming down here for about 30, 35. I'm up here on the topic here with no thought prior to the last 15 minutes, so my knowledge and experience is kind of limited, but I do own companies, LLCs as well as an S Corp. And what they are is they're private and they're different, and they can be owned by other corporations, they can be owned by other people. The point is, you might not know what the motivation is, it's an entity. So as a property owner right now, I actually have several properties. I have one vote. If we were to open this up to an LLC having a vote per property, theoretically, I could buy 5 properties, own 5 different companies, and have 5 votes. So I don't know if that's what the fear is, because I know that the chatter and all that stuff that kind of got me in here was direction towards the 4 people that own the commercial part of the town here in a significant capacity. So, but that would be my concern with considering, and I understand that, I might decide to put mine into an LLC, and I very well could, because there's also tax advantages. It's not just liability, it's financial planning. How do I pass this on to my kids in an effective way, and share membership and all that kind of stuff. But we really don't want to get into regulating that kind of thing. So I speak as somebody that's probably going to flip to LLC in some of my properties, if not all of them. I personally would be willing to forego my right to vote in the event that I decide to do that, because if it's inconvenient or a big problem for that person as an LLC, they could sell it back to an individual and they get their vote back.
Right.
So I think that's my.
Is Elaine Bull online by chance?
She is.
Elaine?
Hi, I think that the recommendation from the Charter and Code that we would have a bigger discussion about this, but I'm quite pleasantly happy to see the residents understand the topic very well. And I think they're speaking to some of the concerns that you should have. When you talk about 150 or 200 LLCs that wouldn't be able to vote, I think if you look at the record of the lady that was spoke before this gentleman, she said there was 35 residents. Many of those LLCs are owned by the same, as this gentleman also said, by the same person. So they own many, and the background that I had, the chair, David, send you, you'll see the problems of being able to actually make sure it's just one man, one vote, instead of, 20 LLCs, 20 votes for the same person. So there's that aspect of it. So I feel happy, very happy actually, from to hear how educated and thoughtful the audience is. That's all I have to say.
Elaine, how do we prevent multiple people from, if you own multiple properties, we track that person, if I own 10 properties, I still only have one vote in town. I can't have 10.
Right, well.
Can we identify who Elaine is and why she's
Yeah, Elaine, can you give some background? Who you are?
I am the election chair who's been out of a job for quite a few years because there's no elections. For instance, the town clerk is there, and anybody that's on a deed, anybody that lives full-time, anybody that's a trustee, they have to be the executor of the trustee. So we've expanded voting rights to also accommodate issues with our town if you have a long-term lease. She checks the records, and the records are a lot better than they were 10 years ago, and she can see that they're on the deed, and she registers for them to vote. And so if the name Paul Bauer comes up, and it comes up twice, she would know that you've tried to register twice. You only get to register once. And she'd look at the property. Now, if it was Paul Bauer Jr. and you could prove that you're a different person, then she'd figure that out too. Is there ever mistakes? Maybe, but not many with Kate. Kate's really, really good at doing her job.
Really, really good.
And she's made the process for Dewey very transparent, and she keeps really good records, and she has everything up on the website. So when someone sells a property, she gets that information every month, and then she takes them off the voting record, so they're not there. Our great office staff, Joyce, she used to know everybody in town, so she knew when somebody died. That's a little harder to track, but so an issue that you may want to consider in looking at voter rights is how do we keep the records up to date? And one of the things that Dewey did, but Rehoboth did, but it's not in their charter, is every 2 years some people like to say purge. I think that sounds like the Politburo, but they would drop you from the records if you hadn't voted in 2 years. You'd be able to vote. You just have to check to see if you were on there, and then they would update them. That's a conversation but that wouldn't work because we haven't had an election in quite a few years. So nobody's voted. But I hope that those answer your questions.
Gary, do you have a question?
Well, yeah, first of all, I just want to say, there was never any intention in pursuing this to dilute the votes of the existing voters. I think it's important to say that. Excuse me?
May not have been.
It was not, and I think there are ways of pursuing something in a way that is one person, one vote. But it's complex, and I think it would cause some additional work for the election staff to be able to do that. There's some new federal requirements. There are a couple of municipalities that do provide this kind of voting, Fenwick Island and Hemlock and Acres. They both try to do one person, one vote. I don't know how successful they are. Seaford has been trying to do the same thing, and they have a somewhat different wrinkle. They take advantage of some new federal requirements to try to identify people who may be involved in more than one LLC. I think the key issue here is, there was a potential equity issue, but there isn't really an equity issue unless we're being flooded with requests from people who own LLCs to have voting rights. And I have not gotten one email or letter or communication of any kind from a person involved in LLC who says, I want to vote, but please, change the rules so that I can vote too.
Well,
Now, you may have different.
Yeah, well,
experience,
that
but
brings
I'm not
it.
flooded with those kinds of.
So I think it's pretty clear by everything we received, this is no, keep it the way it is, guys. We're happy with the way it is, which is fine. We're gonna do that. So again, you have no work, David Lyons. So, but the question, Lane, I'd ask you this. If somebody did have an LLC and and they obviously own their property and it was a single person, single LLC, is there a path? Like, could they have a lease agreement with themselves, with their LLC and be able to vote? Or if you have an LLC, you can't vote?
I think that if you're talking about, I mean, Fred's there, you should ask him this legal question. But I don't know how you rent back. I guess you can rent back if you're living here, but if you're living full-time in Dewey, you can vote anyway if your house isn't an LLC.
Right.
So it wouldn't prevent, you don't have to own property in Dewey to be able to vote. And when I think Gary just mentioned, it's the how to actually to deal with the issue if you allowed an LLC to vote, a corporation, because you still couldn't have you'd have to track it. And Seifert, from what I understand I called around a little bit because I didn't know I'd be asked to speak, but I did call around. And one of the hardest jobs that they're having is having to track it. So it is a burden on the office, but that shouldn't be a reason not to give LLCs. It should be because of that they're a business, they're not an individual. And what the lady I can see her in the white dress with the stripes talked about. So, but I would ask any legal questions. I would present those to the town attorney.
So it probably is possible, at least the way our code is written, that an LLC could grant a lease of more than 5 years, and it would behoove them. We're not in the business of encouraging this, but there would have to be 5 years remaining on the lease for the leaseholder to be able to exercise the right to vote under our code. So if somebody certified that they were the holder of a lease with 5 to 10 years on it or something, I don't know that we would be in a position, regardless of how the property is owned, to deny that person from registering to vote. So that does look and sound like a workaround to me, but I don't.
I'm not
know
inviting a workaround, but if somebody wants to participate it wants to be part of the voice, they have the ability to be part of the voice. Okay.
Ms. Banaszak, do you have a comment?
I just wanted to speak on Fred's point. We have, in a couple instances, not many, had someone whose property was in an LLC, but they were still able to vote because they were a bona fide resident. So it's not about just someone's name, it's what legally allows you to vote. You're either a trustee, a leaseholder, a bona fide resident, or a property owner. So really, the workaround, I don't want to call it that, but if you have a property in an LLC, but you can prove that you are a bona fide resident, you live here full-time in Dewey Beach, you may vote.
Okay. Thank you.
And there seems to be no reason to allow the LLCs then.
I agree. All right.
Comments?
Sure.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, hi, Beth.
Hi, this is Beth Caruso. And I just had a question because I thought I understood this topic and now I just got confused. So if a person's a part-time, like if they're a part-time resident and a property owner or a long-term leaseholder, if they put their property in an LLC, do they have the right to vote?
You said part-time resident.
Right. So you're a full-time resident somewhere else, you own a place here, you're a property owner. Do you have a right to vote if you?
Well, you're not the property owner if the property is in an LLC. So you can't be a resident in two places at the same time either. So you're either a resident, a bona fide resident of Dewey Beach, which entitles you to vote, and as it should. If you live here, regardless, we don't require real ownership of land in order to vote. If you are the record owner of property, you can vote. And if you hold a valid lease that's certified to, that has 5 years or more remaining on it, then you qualify under our charter as a leaseholder. Did I misunderstand the question?
No, I think what confused is the words of, if you're the homeowner. And even though it's an individual that put it in a trust, you are no longer the homeowner if it is in a trust. The trust is the owner.
LLC.
Right.
Yeah, the LLC.
And the LLC, I
So
apologize.
you are an owner of units of an LLC. You're not the owner of the land. You're an owner of membership units, which are considered personal property and not real estate, which is a probate issue.
So is that the common ownership application of that? So if 10 people own an LLC, there's a common ownership where that's one identifiable person.
This wasn't the intent of putting this on. It was the intent of making sure everyone's properly represented. Right. So.
I think it's a helpful
No.
conversation.
I agree. But I didn't want her standing for 15 minutes.
All right, sorry about that.
Hello, everybody. My name is Claire Snyder Hall. I'm running for the State House. That would be in this district. So that's why I'm commenting. I just wanted to, it sounds like there's a consensus emerging here, but I did want to comment that I think it would be very difficult to get a charter change like this approved by the General Assembly, given what happened with Seaford.
Right.
And I know that there's a movement that some people are trying to ban, artificial entities from voting. So, if it's going to be a divisive, difficult conversation and people are angry and hard feelings and stuff, it might not be, worth it if it's not going to be able to get past the General Assembly anyway.
I understand. I'm up for election this year, so this was not my intention at all. So,
We're both on the same page there.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Mayor, you have another comment on Zoom.
sure.
David, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, just David Moskowitz, just expanding on what Claire said, there's House Bill 189, which I don't think the town referenced, and it's out of committee as of March 2024. So it could come for a vote by the end of this session possibly. And it says this act makes clear that corporations and other artificial entities may not be given a vote in municipal elections. So I'm not sure if the town was aware of that outstanding issue, but LLCs, I'm against it because you have surf clubs. So someone, I think Gary had mentioned Equitable, but in surf club, there's a week A, B, C, D. So technically a person could be the same owner, but form 4 LLCs and get 4 times the vote of another person. So that's why this topic has come up many times over the years, but the surf club is referenced. And then think about a builder, they could have 10 different LLCs for each unit, have a different person assigned to rep it, who's actually behind the LLC. So I'm very happy there seems to be a consensus that this is not going to go through.
Thank you. All right. No work for David Lyons again. All right. No, I'm just happy that everyone, we're having the conversation. Okay, so I think it's good to have the conversation. So in regards to section 2022, the role of commissioners in approving town budget and the town manager's ability to manage aggregate numbers rather than specific line item details with approved budget. This came up as a matter of, in the prior budget process, Bill Zolper and I, the town manager, were going through line items, and it came up, and I'll just be very specific to it, is that if Bill was being held, the town manager and the town therefore is being held to a budget number, and we'll call it an easy number for the police salaries, and the police salaries are at $2 million. Do we also, is he approved at the 2 million, or is he approved at the 15 people that make up the 2 million? And it was a conversation that Gary and I had going back and forth of which one's which, and there was 2 different sections of the code that actually contradicted each other. And it's more of, it's not that we want to give, not that we're looking to potentially give the town hall the ability to do whatever they want. It is, what are we approving? is kind of what the conversation was. So, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I think, there were two different sections of the code. One was in section 8 and then the other in section 22, where there seemed to be some duplicative, perhaps inconsistent language. And I think when we talked about this a couple of months ago, we thought that we did not need the kind of detail that was required under section 8. We really don't need to have the salaries or compensation of individual employees managing the overall number for that. We need to know what the overall number is clearly in the budget process, but we don't need to micromanage the salaries of individual employees, whether that's the police department or administrative staff. I do tend to think that the language in section 22 is an appropriate level of detail for us to have as part of the budget, as well as the appropriate level of detail to have on a continuing basis. That's not to say that we might not want to consider letting the town manager have some flexibility in terms of managing to the overall cost for different departments, as long as we stay within the overall budget. But I think for the budget process, and we heard a little bit of a counter suggestion to some extent earlier on when we talked about the financials, that perhaps we get more detail than many other municipalities in town do. But I'm really hesitant to give up the level of detail that we get in the budget process. I think that decreases transparency, not only for us, but for the public as well. And as things, whether we're talking on the revenue side or the expenditure side, as things begin to shift, it's helpful to have that detail to understand, what kinds of things are happening. I know it's more work for the accounting staff, but I think it's valuable information. And, I'm pretty comfortable with the language that we have.
That we're down in 22? Okay.
Yeah.
Any other?
Yeah, my take on this is I just don't think we need to over-engineer it. I mean, the reality is our town manager actually works for us, right? And he's come to us, and other town managers come to us with things that they want to change and move money around, and generally we're, pretty cooperative about it. But we need to, when we approve a budget, as Commissioner Bersinger said, we need to kind of have the line in detail and understand what we're approving, not just, kind of aggregate numbers and what's going on. So, I mean, I kind of like the way things are.
Okay.
Shannon was talking about the reporting and the detailed line item stuff, and I think this all dovetails with that. And, there is, I think in most accounting software, the option to have kind of your aggregate number and then your subcodes, underneath that. So in terms of the public's understanding, I don't know, I think we could provide more summary level information that's not as detailed. Typically accounting software is set up that way. But I do think that we need, some level of detail when we're going through the budget.
I agree. And also, Sheena's going to kill me for saying this. I appreciate having the detail in the month, because when I look at the aggregate and I look at some numbers that just don't make sense, I can dive into detail. And, being that everyone has access to that information, they can decide what level of detail they could want to get into. Okay. Does anyone have any feeling towards us changing it? Right now, we're going to leave it the way it is. No.
You have comment on Zoom. David?
Yeah, so I understand it's going to be left with the staffing plan and the line item detail intact?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Charter Section 20, increase the maximum penalty that may be levied by the alderman from $1,000 to $3,000 or other appropriate maximum. This came in the last few months of council meetings where I believe it had to do with the improper removal of trees.
Correct.
And a decision to put it at 3,000, and we, if you improperly removed a tree based upon a tree ordinance, we found a workaround by, and I'll call it that, which I probably shouldn't, council, please strike that, of assessing a penalty, but having had that penalty increase if actions had not been taken in a period of time. And it comes back to, is the 1,000 a sufficient penalty? Or should the alderman have the ability to have a higher amount, whatever that might be, in their capacity?
Was the 1,000 set in 1981?
I believe, Kate, do you know the answer to that? When was the 1,000 number set? I'm assuming.
I mean, if it was 1981, you can just do the inflation and you kind of get.
That's 10,000.
Yeah, whatever. Right. Get significantly higher.
What's the number based on?
What is pain?
Yeah.
And 1,000 isn't.
That's why we're talking. Honestly, Alex, that's why it's where did 1,000 come from? I mean, the unfortunate thing is that Dewey Beach of 1981 and Dewey Beach of 2024 is a much different economic engine. And for me to say I'm going to charge you $1,000 for taking that tree down, it may be nothing to you right now. So, yeah, come on up.
I was
Name, rank.
Literally, thank you guys. Thank you for your service. My question is just, I would say.
State your name for the record.
Alex Hanna, resident of Clayton, full-time resident, love the town of Dewey, fabulous. Thank you guys, everyone. Yeah, so it should be something consistent, right? It should be something you can point to, that's logic, that's based, if you wanted to do inflation as of today, I would just wonder what others are charging in the community, and set it at that. I'm not planning on taking any trees down, I love my trees, but I do think there should be some real pain involved, but I think to arbitrarily, and I'm not saying that was done, but I think just to identify a number, that you can then push back at.
Arbitrarily? Arbor?
Absolutely, that could be the fee name, thank you.
We did, within the existing $1,000 limit, we're able to amend the tree ordinance so that it's effective and it doesn't inflict pain, but we did that by requiring successive penalties, individual penalties, not increasing, levying a penalty once and then increasing it over time. There was no, I'm not aware if there was an original basis, any basis at all for the $1,000. I don't know what other municipalities are doing. That's something I guess we could answer.
If we can have the Charter and Code look into that and come up with a recommendation as to if the penalties are adequate.
And while we're talking about this in terms of the tree replacement, it also limits what the alderman can fine anybody for anything.
So,
In 2012, there was an initiative that basically required us to adopt our alderman statute into the charter. And it was basically imposed on us and other towns that had aldermen as opposed to having justices of the peace with these jurisdictions. So I think there's probably going to be some requirement that the alderman's jurisdiction be similar or identical to the justices of the peace.
Do you happen to know if there is a limitation on what the JP court can issue as a penalty?
There definitely is. I'm not sure what it is, but I just wanted you to know that this $1,000 came from 2012. It didn't come from 1981.
Okay.
And I suspect that they didn't just take our 1981 number. I think this is a 2012 number.
Mm-hmm. Without any opposition, maybe that's an element that you guys can look at and research what's happening with other towns
David,
as
you
well.
got something to work on.
Thank God. All right. Any other conversation around the Alderman? No. All right. So similar to that, Section 26 increased the current limit of $3 million for the town's indebtedness. The only indebtedness right now, we are a debt-free town and we want to keep it that way. It makes us strong. Our last major investment was the Bayard Street pump, which we paid off
3 years ago.
3 years ago. The question mark, this came up as to, and if you have this history, Fred, I should have called you, then put it on here, but where did the 3 million come from? Like, why is it 3 million? Why is it a different number? Should it be more? Should it be less? Should it be tied to something? This obviously was a conversation around before Representative Schwarzkopf gave us $3 million to help build Town Hall, is how are we going to finish, how are we going to build Town Hall? And I feel probably overly confident, as Bill Zolper has reminded me of, that we'll get the funds, but if we have to borrow to finish the project, what can we do if we need to borrow to get there?
Just by way of history, the borrowing limit was $1.5 million. That was set in 1993.
93, okay.
In 2021, the previous incarnation of the Charter and Code Review Committee recommended a $3.5 million cap. And when we finalized the charter amendments in 2021, we reduced it to $3 million in some brilliant flash of wisdom.
I was going to ask, what was the wisdom? Is there anything that it was an arbitrary number that?
It was.
Is it typo?
I don't recall the conversation specifically, but I don't recall certainly.
You remember everything else, but you don't remember this.
No, I do not.
All right.
That's because it was a function of an arbitrary line drawing exercise, not because we found the answer somewhere else. I don't think there's any language we can pull from other charters that dictate
I'm
what
comfortable where
our
it's at.
borrowing
It's 3 or
capacity
3 and
could
a
be.
half.
And remember, if we did find charters where the borrowing capacity was much greater than 3 million, they're probably taxing their residents.
And being able to cover it. But let me ask you this, Fred, if we did find ourselves with a need to borrow 4 million, just what would be the process that the council would have to go through in order to complete town hall in that scenario?
What, our charter currently limits us to borrowing 3.
Right.
Correct.
But you're asking what would we do if we had to borrow 4?
Yes.
Borrow 3. I don't know that
It's a charter change.
It sounds like a charter change to me. I mean, I think if you broke up your loans into 4 installments, you're still violating the.
Right, the total indebtedness.
Yeah, and the action is, I think, were to be challenged, would be void. I don't know how you would void a loan that's already made. I think whoever it was certifying that you could pay this back. If it was an attorney representing an institution, a lending institution, they would have some answering to do. Because once you borrow it, they give it to you, then what?
Maybe I'm not saying it clearly, or maybe it's, so if I need to borrow, if the town needs to borrow $4 million to complete a project, and it could be 2 different loans, it could be $2 million for town hall, it could be $2 million for a Reed Street pumping station, and while we wait for funds. Right now, we're not able to borrow anything in excess of $3 million in order to accomplish those goals.
Unless it's approved by referendum.
Unless it's approved by referendum.
And because you vote to enter into a loan arrangement, I think the vote, if I was here or whoever was sitting in my seat would say, you can't do it.
So the only pathway is if we wanted to have the ability to borrow more than 3 million would be to go through referendum. All right. Okay. Any other public comment on that or just?
Yeah, you have comment on Zoom, David.
Hello?
Where?
Yeah, so just some misinformation was said before. It wasn't Pete who got the money. It was Ashley Sanders who helped get the money, and the money came through Bethany Hall Long, the $3 million. We had set originally the $3 million limit, and now is based on money towards a new town hall, which if COVID didn't happen, it would have been much cheaper to build. I think, I mean, sitting here right now, I think you'd be better off changing it from 3 to 3.5, so there's a little increase, and then just setting it to the rate of inflation. So this way, this doesn't have to be looked upon every few years.
Yeah. No.
Thank you. Any other comment? All right, so if we get cross that bridge, we're gonna have to cross through referendum at that point in time. Or a recommendation coming out of charter and code. All right.
I like this next one.
All right. So we're gonna get to this real quick. It's 5:18. I think all of us are happy that it's only 5:18. So the next element here, again, as you can see, this is, again, a rainy day. I was bored. Charter Section 33, amend prohibition on gambling to allow any state authorized lottery ticket sales. Again, some background here, we didn't want a casino. We didn't want Keno. We didn't want, fear of what the Hyatt may or may have done, 10, 15 years ago to our town of Dewey Beach.
So strongly, they decided to make it part of the charter.
Then make it part of the charter. And one of the unintended consequences, and again, this is a selfish, I'll throw this out, this is a selfish, whenever the Mega Millions gets above or Powerball, I want a ticket. And there's nowhere in town to get a ticket. I have to go out to Valero on the Forgotten Mile.
That's such a long trip.
Well, when you're used to walking everywhere, Gary. So the only question mark, and I don't even know if any of the, if the Exxon or the liquor store or the convenience stores that we have in town, if they wanted to offer the ability to buy a state-backed lottery ticket.
If the Exxon station wants to sell lottery tickets.
If they want to, could they? So
right now they can't.
I think I did this when it was over $200 million in one of the lotteries when I was thinking about that.
Have they shown interest?
I went to stop by the Exxon, nobody was there. So they haven't shown interest. It was just a thought. I know the intent was I'm saying it as a resident, I don't want Keno, I don't want, I don't, but.
Could the convenience store do that too?
Yeah, I mean, anybody can do it if they, the funny thing is, Alex, if I type in Delaware State Lottery and I go to the Delaware State Lottery website, they list Powerball and Mega Millions. So I don't know if it's a wording issue, but just bring it up.
Well, if the businesses aren't asking to be able to do this, why go to the trouble?
Yeah, that's fair.
You know? I mean, if the businesses are saying, hey, we want to be able to sell lottery tickets, I would think about it.
So the one thing I put in for myself here, you said.
Well, the discussion we had before, I seem to get the idea from Fred that, as long as it's authorized by the state, we can go ahead and do it anyway.
It's a
And
state-run
so
program.
that's why, and so these
Precluding
national
without
lotteries, I
anybody.
think, are authorized by the state.
It's authorized, but yeah, so I don't understand, there's a state lottery office. I don't know if they've been led to believe that they can't grant authorization to sell or to vend or whatever the appropriate word is in Dewey Beach. We don't enforce this.
Okay.
Right? You don't train constables
Nope.
to go around and say, you don't have any lottery going on in here. So I don't know why.
Constables.
I don't know why, I don't see this as a prohibition against Mega Millions being sold in a convenience store in Dewey Beach. At least the way I read it, it would be
allowed,
authorize a nonprofit aren't they nonprofit charitable, or are they not charitable?
That's more of, if you have a nonprofit and you want to have some game of chance, you're allowed to in Dewey Beach.
So 50/50.
Except for lotteries as conducted by the state. So we would take the position, or somebody's taking the position, that Mega Millions is not conducted by the state? Is that the lottery office's stance?
I don't know, but maybe the best approach here is if it ain't broke, don't try to fix something.
All right. All right.
Because nobody's selling the tickets and nobody's, calling.
Fine, I'll walk to Valero.
Is there anything else you want to sell in town?
You got to deal with me outside of this meeting, pal, so I want to hear. The last element on
Mayor,
here.
you have comment, I'm sorry.
Sure. Why, we just decided we're not doing anything?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm just letting you know. David.
Yeah, so it actually is allowed. And the reason why, and also you have to understand the state also has sports gambling as well. They offer through the state lottery on a parlay basis. But the reason why a place like Nicola's might do it, or the Wawa, and not like a place in Dewey, is because there's not enough year-round foot traffic. You have licensing fees, equipment and installation, training and compliance, transaction fees, bonding requirements, and commissions and payouts. But that said, the Powerball is through the state lottery. It's just a very expensive thing for a place that doesn't get enough foot traffic to do versus the Wawa, which gets lots of traffic.
Okay, done issue. All right, next one. We're gonna table this conversation anyway, because this is more of a conversation, this is about accommodation rates and taxes. I think that we're gonna have a longer conversation, after we find out what the state is gonna do. The original thought process here is, just so everyone is aware, is that we are locked by charter at 3% tax on the accommodations here in town. Last year, that represented $750,000 in revenue to the town, a very significant amount of money. Dewey Beach is the only one at 3. All the other neighboring towns, all the other beach towns are at 6+. So at 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, and there's potentially money that, if the town needed, when it needed, could access it. But the only way that would happen is through referendum.
We're also limited on the lodging tax as well,
Yeah.
3%. And there are other municipalities that have a higher lodging tax.
But those changes would come through referendums and therefore a complete public vote. If we were to change,
Potentially, yeah.
potential change. So that should have been on there. That was at the end of my day. Any other comments? All right. Thank you for the workshop time. Dave Lyons gets no work to do.
No, he got one, he got one.
assignment.
Wait, wait, we're not done yet. Wait, number 9, comments. Commissioner Bauer.
I thought this meeting was going to last 10 hours. I'm thankful that it's only 2.5. No, thanks for everybody for their input. And one thing I did learn today was that we might want to form a public safety committee.
They had one in the past.
Yeah, probably wouldn't be a bad idea to put together. Let's get some public input from people. And if you don't ask, you don't learn, right? So
It's on the list. All right, Commissioner Gibbons,
No comments.
Commissioner Jazinski,
No comments.
Commissioner Persinger.
I would just say I really appreciate all the people who came out today and offered their views on the various issues. We haven't had attendance that good in quite some time, and I think it's very valuable to have that input.
I might throw something, a challenge on there just to get people here going forward.
Maybe a lottery.
Maybe a lottery, maybe a lottery. You get no property tax if you win the lottery. We don't have property tax for the record. My only comments is a reminder, there are several things that were approved today on the normal agenda items that are going to planning and zoning. That planning and zoning meeting is June 27th, so it's coming up next week. Our next scheduled council meeting is July, it's the third week in July, so that will be third Friday, so July 19th, which means that that's after the 4th of July, so everyone have a great 4th of July. With that, can I have a motion?
Motion.
To adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.